When I scroll this page in the Pacific Highway case study, everything scrolls at the same time. That's quite normal. That's how web pages normally work. What I want to do in this lesson is to show you how to fix the header and the navigation bar at the top of the page like this. When I scroll this version of the page, everything disappears underneath the header. This is done with fixed positioning, which fixes the element within the browser viewport. Making an element fixed like this is very easy, but it can cause complications for the rest of the page. So let's go over to Dreamweaver and start work. I've got highway.css selected in the CSS designer, so I'm going to create a new selector for the header, which will be #header, and then in the properties pane in the layout section scroll down to position and set that to fixed. And I'm going to save all related files and then go back to the browser and reload it. And simply by setting the position of header to fixed, I've already made that change. By setting the header's position to fixed, it's been removed from the ordinary flow of the document. It's been put on a separate layer above everything else. So if I start scrolling, it works. But the problem is, when we get down lower in the page, you can see that it's overlapping everything and it doesn't look very good. The other thing to notice is that both the heading and the navigation bar have actually moved over to the left. That's because the header's width is no longer being controlled by the wrap-up, so it's actually shrunk to its actual size, and the browser has moved it over to the left. So we need to go back to Dreamweaver to make some adjustments. With the header selected, we need to go up to the width and set that to 1200 pixels, which is the same width as the wrapper. We also need to give the header a background color, so go down to the background section, background color, set that to white and make sure that it's in hexadecimal, and then we'll save all related files again, go back to the browser and reload. So we're now back in the center, but what's happened here is that we're hiding part of that hero image. But if we scroll down, it does look okay, so that's working quite well. So let's fix the position of this image. I need to select the image and then the figure element and give it an ID of hero. Then we can create a new style rule for hero, and that needs to have a top margin. Now I've already worked out that the margin at the top needs to be 140 pixels. Save everything again, save all related files, reload in the browser. Oh dear. If you don't set any offsets for a positioned element, it occupies the position it normally would in the normal document flow. What has happened here is I've added 140 pixels to the top of the hero figure, and the rule of collapsing margins has pushed that header away from the top of the page. So what we need to do is to set a 0 top offset for this. Back to Dreamweaver, and in header we need to find the offsets and set top to 0. So we can now save everything again, go back to the browser, reload, and everything is now working very nicely. At least it is on this page. Look what happens when I go to the Big Sur. This page doesn't have a hero image, so the intro article is hidden behind the header. So we need to fix this too. Back to Dreamweaver. Now one problem is, if I just create a style rule for intro and add 140 pixels to the top of that, then it's going to push intro on this page 140 pixels down. What we need to do is to create a special style rule that will affect the intro article only if it comes immediately after the header. So we need to create a new style rule, new selector, and that will be #header, then a plus sign followed by #intro. And this type of selector goes by the rather fancy name of the adjacent sibling combinator. And what that means is it combines two selectors as long as they are adjacent siblings. So in other words, if intro immediately follows after header, this will apply. If there's anything in between the two of them, it won't apply. So it's exactly what we want. So we need to add a margin of 140 pixels to the top there. And then again, save all related files. And if we go back to the browser one last time, refresh the page, there it's working very nicely there. It works nicely on Pfeffer Beach. And if we go back to the home page and scroll down, there's no extra margin on top of the intro article here. So to fix the header at the top of the page, I set its position property to fixed. That was the easy part. It removed the header from the document flow and fixed it in the browser viewport. But to get it to work properly, I also had to add a top margin to this hero image. But that had the effect of pushing the header away from the top. So it was necessary to set the header's top offset to 0. Finally, I needed to use an adjacent sibling combinator to apply a top margin to the intro article on pages that didn't have a hero image. Without it, the first part of this intro article would be hidden behind the header. Don't say I didn't warn you that using fixed positioning could cause complications for the rest of the page.